Welcome, everyone, to Hands on Politics. You're here with a couple of brothers from the Bronx where we get together on a weekly basis to discuss the issues of the day, hoping to make politics understandable for those who want to understand politics. Ken, it's good to be back on the show with you. Like always, we've got so many topics that we can dive into. There's a heck of a lot going on there. So before we get started, how are you doing this week?
Rich, I'm doing good. It's a little bit cold down here in Georgia, but I think it's better than it is up north. You know, we've gotten some temperatures in the 20s and the 30s. Things are going well down here. How about up there?
It's a typical dreary winter in upstate New York. So, and it gets drearier every day that Kathy Hochul agrees with something that Modami wants to do. They're talking about raising taxes, electric rates. It's just nonstop here in New York, and Hochul needs to be defeated. But unfortunately, New Yorkers just, I don't get it, Ken. We're New Yorkers. New Yorkers are a tough people. They tend to tell it like it is. They can sniff out a rat like nobody else in the country can, but they vote Democrat. And I think it's the roots of the New York City unions and the old Democratic Party that people think they're voting for. And as we know, and we talk about all the time, this Democrat Party is actually a communist socialist party, and they are not hiding it anymore. They are out in the open, and we'll talk about some of that today. But it's very frustrating up here in upstate New York. I would get out of here tomorrow if I could convince my wife to sell the place.
Yeah, well, don't leave. They need good people like you, and maybe through Hands on Politics, we can start turning the tide. And it's like a pendulum. Right now, it's swung over to the left, but maybe we can swing it back over to the right, or at least we can help it swing back to the right, Rich. So don't give up hope just yet.
No, I never give up hope. But, we're here for a purpose, Ken. We believe in purpose. We all have a purpose. We do things for a reason. We're here at Hands on Politics for a reason. And we will find out what that is at some point in the rearview mirror. But for now, we'll just keep plugging forward. What do we want to start with today, Ken?
Well, we have a lot on our agenda. You know, you just have the general Minnesota chaos, but we also want to get to Davos and maybe talk a little bit about Trump's 2025 accomplishments. And then we'll see if we have time for anything else. But how about we start out with the I understand that the DOJ just issued some subpoenas, some grand jury subpoenas, and included in there are Tim Walz and the Attorney General Keith Ellison, the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, and then what is the sister city, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the St. Paul mayor, I don't know his first name, but her. So what about it? We start off with that.
I love the fact that subpoenas have been handed out. You know, one of the things that frustrates people that support Trump and law and order and ICE and the rule of law is that there has been so much blatant disregard for the law, and nobody's being held accountable. A lot of people are waiting for the handcuffs to go on these people because some of the stuff they are doing is absolutely blatant. And if this was reversed, if we had Democrats in office, we know what they would be doing. And we've seen what they've done. And I know we don't want to weaponize DOJ, but it's pretty obvious that what's going on in Minneapolis and St. Paul is absolutely obstruction of federal agents doing their job. To the people of Minneapolis and St. Paul, have you seen the people that they're getting out of your neighborhoods? Why would you want them in your neighborhoods is the question. Why wouldn't you just cooperate with ICE, get the 1,600 people that are in your jails that are rapists, murderers, child traffickers, and get them the hell out of your city and so that ICE doesn't have to track them down in your
Hmm.
neighborhoods. That's all
Hmm.
I'm asking, Ken. So these subpoenas are a good thing from my point of view.
Yeah. Last week, you made some great points when it comes to the First Amendment that gives us the right to freedom of speech, the freedom
Hmm.
of assembly, the freedom or the right to petition our government. You talked about that, and that's very important that we have those laws. But we have people in Minnesota who think that they're Rosa Parks, they think that they're Martin Luther King, they think they're Gandhi, they think they're Frederick Douglass. But what they are, they're really just common street thugs, Rich, or
Hmm.
they're emotional basket cases. There's a combination of people up there who have just lost their minds, woke white women. But they need to get off the streets. They need to let law enforcement remove the people who are there. Like you said, the people who are very dangerous. They are not saving all these great, beautiful people. They're saving, or they're obstructing ICE from removing some of the worst people that you could ever imagine. But I really do think that it's important that what you said last week is the way that they're obstructing justice, the way they're obstructing ICE and just immigration enforcement, it is way past what they are legally allowed to do. Disorderly conduct, they have fighting words, they're obstructing justice, obstructing officers from doing their job. They are not
Damaging
peaceful
federal
protesters,
property.
Rich.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're
And
bashing cars, they're breaking windows, um, and they're going onto private property like churches. There's no right for you to uh, to protest in somebody's church. That's not what the First Amendment's about. You can't. That's called criminal trespass and harassment and threats against individuals. There's a whole bunch of federal laws about
mhm.
impeding on people's ability to worship. So none of that is covered in the First Amendment.
Yeah, exactly. And the law, there's what's called the FACE Act, which was
Yep.
passed in 1994, and it's a law that explicitly makes it illegal to use force or threats from anyone attending churches or religious gatherings. It covers harassment, intimidation, threatening, stalking, stalking stalking the people within the church. And if you saw what was happening in that church, it was outrageous. You just have a bunch of innocent little people who are going to church to worship God, and you have these punks and
Yep.
violent punks coming in there just to harass little old ladies, nice, peaceful people. It is absolutely unacceptable. And I'm really hoping that Pam Bondi, with these subpoenas against Walz and Ellison and what they're doing to obstruct the removal of illegal aliens, I hope Pam Bondi goes after them. I hope Pam Bondi goes after these punks who
Yep.
are going into churches and harassing people. Just very frustrating. And you and I grew up in the Bronx, and you think about, would anything like this ever happen? And I would say no. And not just because of law enforcement, but because people would not accept it.
Yep.
If you tried to harass people in church or just living their lives, there'd be what's called street justice would take place. And there'd be a few people who get their faces beat in. And I'm not against that at all. I think that is sometimes the better solution than it is rounding these people up and throwing them into jail for a few days.
Yeah, and Ken, if somebody went in and disrupted St. John's Church and a whole bunch of mothers were in there, and that word got into the neighborhood, there would be a group of people that, to your point, would make sure that didn't happen again. Sometimes the old way, people say, "Oh, you bunch of boomers. You think, you've got all the answers," but sometimes that work, ability for these people to operate unimpeded by the natural laws of the neighborhood. And, it's sad to see. And one of the things I want you to take notice when you look at Minneapolis and you compare the summer of love 2020 and the winter of love 2026, look at the crowds and who are the main agitators between the two of them. And one of the things you don't see in this new wave of anti-ICE are a huge amount of minorities. And here's my analysis or theory on why that is because the people that they're getting out of these neighborhoods, these rapists, murderers, drug traffickers, are in the minority neighborhoods hiding. And these people know it, and they don't have any issue with ICE coming in and cleaning out their neighborhood. So are there some minorities? Yeah, but in back in the BLM riots, it looked like Minneapolis was a very heavily minority city, which it isn't. It's, Minnesota is a milk white toast state. So, it's a small population of minorities there, and you're not seeing them as active in this because I think it impacts their communities more than it does these agitators who, some of these kids, I'm sure they're college educated, live in mom and dad's basement, or they live off some kind of, I'm going to school and mom and dad are paying for my graduate degree type people. And it's just frustrating to watch how these people are trying to stop neighborhoods from becoming safer.
Yeah. Well, last week, Rich, you mentioned, we talked a little bit about the chaos. And I thought you made some great points about the chaos, about it being purposeful, right? This is not spontaneous. These are organized by Democrats or leftists who have money, like the George Soroses of the world. They want civil disorder. They want
Absolutely.
the riots. They want the protests. They want the looting. They want all of that because that creates an environment where they can say, see, when Trump is in charge, this is what happens. But if we had law-abiding governors and mayors, what would happen? We wouldn't even notice this stuff was happening because I think you mentioned last week that there were like 600 illegal aliens in the jails or maybe the prisons.
I think there's 1,600, I believe. Yeah, I believe.
So all it is, Tim Walz or Jacob Fry saying, hey, okay, we're going to be letting these guys out, on Thursday. So bring your buses.
Come on down. Absolutely.
Pick them up. And then there's no issues at all. None at all. And especially if they're in jail or they're in prison, they're in there for a reason. They're not only here illegally, which is a crime, they've also committed another crime. And so what sane person doesn't want to call up the people who can take them out of their state, out of their city, out of this country? It is totally insane. But again, the point is there would be no chaos if the cities and state did what they're supposed to do, and that is working along with federal law enforcement to have them removed. Rich?
Yeah, it's really Trump derangement syndrome on steroids, and their DNA will not allow them to see a situation for what it is if Donald Trump is involved. If Donald Trump is involved or his administration is involved, he could cure cancer and they would be for cancer. They would be, oh no, we can't cure cancer because we need cancer because the cancer doctors would be out of business. That's the stand that they would take. That's how absurd the left has become with anti-Trump. And, Ken, to that point, I saw a very encouraging poll that was a generic list of issues and who you trust more, the Democrats or the Republicans on the issue. And the Republicans were trusted more on everything: immigration, border security, economy, healthcare, I forget what all of them were. But I thought to myself, aha, so the chaos isn't working, so we need more chaos. Because with all this chaos, what do you think they're trying to do? They're trying to say, if we just offset Trump, we can stop all this stuff from happening. But obviously, what's happening is a positive for most people. So when it comes to the midterms, this was the first good sign I've seen in a while. And me and you, we watch the news all the time. So you get caught up in this chaos. And I don't know about your feeds, but my feeds are full of this garbage, this communist garbage, this socialism garbage, this billionaire garbage, this, anti-ICE garbage. So it does impact you, even when you know it's all staged and it's all being manipulated to make you want to punish Republicans and put in Democrats to get some calm. That would be the worst thing that could ever happen to this country. And my nightmare is that we lose the midterm. So, but this poll was the first time that I said to myself, oh, well, look at that. The American people are seeing right through this. And hopefully many of them have stepped away from the social media, or they're using social media because the mainstream media is so biased that they don't even watch it anymore. So they're looking to the internet to see all of the actual stories that are going on and, discerning whether it's true or false, but seeing a different narrative than just what you see on ABC, NBC, CBS.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that what I'm seeing in my Facebook feeds is not representative of what is actually happening out there in the country, because I see so many crazy people who just hate Trump. But here's the thing that also gives me, kind of comforts me a little bit is, let's say that the Republicans do lose the midterm. The Congress can't pass anything over a presidential veto. So the Congress is going to be trying to pass all this legislation to undo all the stuff that Trump has done in his first couple of years. But they're not going to be able to do that because he'll just veto it. So that they're going to have a bunch of hearings to impeach him. But still, to impeach a president, I don't know, two-thirds to actually remove him from office. So he'll be impeached, because I think impeachment is probably just the majority vote in the House. But then it goes over to the Senate. And so nothing's going to happen. And that's kind of the problem is Trump has done a lot of good things through executive orders. The one big, beautiful bill had a lot of good things in there. But the Republican Congress has not done enough of putting Trump's executive orders, making them become laws. So that's my concern, is that we're not going to have those types of things locked in. So I'm concerned about that. But they can't do too much when Trump has the veto pen.
Yeah, but Ken, think of all they did in 4 years with Biden, how much they can screw up in 4 years. We have to codify so much stuff, including, the voter registration is so important. We need laws on the books. We need to get rid of the filibuster and start passing some stuff in the Senate that, focuses on keeping taxes low. And there's a million issues that they can go through, and, doing some comprehensive immigration reform. And, there's so many things. The Democrats are really good at destroying stuff, and we can't. The midterms, to me, to your point, for the next 2 years, but what happens when Trump's out of office? Are we going to count on, is JD gonna is he going to win the election and be as strong as Trump? I hope so. I don't know that. I just think we need this opportunity all 4 years to regain as much ground as possible.
Yeah.
Because when we look at what the Democrats are calling moderates, the two governors that were elected in Jersey and Virginia, that's who they're calling a moderate. They consider Kathy Hochul a moderate, who is now allowing Mondami, or she's considering a tax on the rich there to allow that to go through. And if you look at what they're doing in Jersey and Virginia, these people are freakazoids. These people hate America. And that's what we're going to get. It's not a pendulum swing anymore. It is a massive move to the left when Democrats win. Massive. And not enough people are awake to what's happening. And we've said it, you coined it, the soft coup. We are in a current civil war. Right now it's a nonviolent civil war, but it's happening at every level. Our politicians are being paid off by China. We've got left-wing NGOs that are destroying our institutions of learning. They are entrenched in our government, our State Department, our DOJ, our FBI. There's a lot of work here for the Republicans to undo. But as soon as the left gets in, it's not a pendulum. It's a fast move to the left, and we can't afford that anymore. So, to me, people really need to start digging in on this, because we have people in our government that hate our founding, hate our principles, hate individual freedom. They want this commune BS, this community crap. Leave the community crap for the church. That's where that belongs. The community crap does not belong in our government. We are a government of individuals that protects the minority so that every individual has the same opportunity. Not one group does better than the other. This is all about individuals having the opportunity to create a great life for themselves, therefore creating a great life for everybody around them. So we really...
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm not saying that there's not more work to be done. I'm not saying that there aren't more things to push back on. The left and all their insanity, they really pushed hard. And so they made a lot of progress, and Trump is pushing back as hard as he can. There's a lot more work to be done. I totally agree with you. Now, let me ask you this, just so we can wrap up the topic of Minnesota. What do you think about using the Insurrection Act? Because there are some people who say, "Oh, you're going too far. We're really pushing it too far there." Or do you think the Insurrection Act is appropriate in this situation? Because the Insurrection Act basically lets President Trump, in this case, deploy U.S. troops to U.S. states to suppress insurrections or enforce federal law, which is what they're fighting against up in Minnesota. They're fighting against immigration law. And it's used when states can't or won't enforce the law. So, and it's been used many times before, mainly in situations where during the civil rights era, but it's also been used during, I think, the Rodney King riots and things like that. And by the way, this is something that Trump can do without getting approval from Congress. So do you think this would be appropriate? Would this show that we're willing to fight back, or would it create even more chaos that would maybe hurt Republicans in the midterms? What's your thought on that, Rich?
Yeah, I'm not against the Insurrection Act, but I don't think we need it right now. I think if we look at what happened at the Minnesota Federal Ice Center, they put up barriers, and now there's no more people on the streets. They're behind the barriers. That was effective. That worked. What I would like to see before we even go to the insurrection, I would like to see Waltz and Fry and whoever else,
Yeah,
um,
Ellison. Yeah, Keith
Ellison,
Ellison.
all indicted. That's what I would like to see, because that will send the message that what you're doing is illegal. And I think the message has to go out that police officers in Minneapolis need to understand that what the leaders of your city are doing is illegal. And you need to get on the side of law enforcement. And you may not help us track people down, but you will keep your streets safe, because that's what you are charged to do under your constitution. Your leaders we're taking them out because they are trying to get you to do the wrong thing. I would start there. Now, if people start storming churches like they have been, and that starts to expand, that becomes a different story. And I think people will accept the Insurrection Act more when they see it going into neighborhoods and churches who have nothing to do with ICE enforcement, and these people take it too far. Them standing outside the Minneapolis Federal Building, they already have kind of squashed that to a degree. When they go out and do their targeted arrests, occasionally these people are finding out where they are and trying to get in the way. To me, not enough for insurrection right now, but it's something that definitely has to be there. But I don't think we're there yet. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense, and that's why you're the responsible firstborn.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
I heard Kristi Noem talk about they've taken, I think it was 10,000 is the number, if I'm not mistaken. Federal officials have said more than 10,000 undocumented individuals have been arrested in Minnesota. Maybe we're getting a skewed version of what's happening in Minnesota. Yes, there's a lot of protests going on. I would love to implement the Insurrection Act, because I do not like bullies who think that they can go and scream in people's faces, spit in their faces, throw frozen water bottles. I don't like people like that. I would love to see them be held accountable. But when I heard that Kristi Noem said they've taken 10,000 illegal aliens and arrested them, that's pretty impressive. Now, granted, we have millions and millions and millions in the country that need to be removed.
Yeah,
but still, 10,000 is a pretty good number.
Absolutely. And to your point, Ken, what we see are these incidents where they are trying to disrupt. Obviously, there's hundreds of other incidents going on that they don't know about, and they're pulling these people off the street. So the atmosphere of chaos is being created by the media, all media. This includes Fox News. What do they want to see? They want to see the battle, right? They want the eyes on. Meanwhile, while they're focused on one area, 1,000 other ICE officers are pulling people off the street. So we have to be very cautious to get the bigger picture because the Insurrection Act that's exactly what the left will love to have happen, because they will see it as Trump being the bully, not the other way around, that you're stopping the bully. They will see it as bullying the states into compliance. So seeing the bigger picture, I think, is important, to your point of deep.
Yeah. Well, Rich, you think it's time? You want to move on to
Sure. Absolutely.
Talk about Davos?
Yeah, I just saw a little bit of that today. I was a little concerned last night when I saw that the Air Force One had to turn around for an electrical problem. And then there was another Air Force One, I didn't know that, that was ready to take them back. It was just kind of a turnaround and go. I was thinking, my mind got a little sidetracked, and I'm thinking, is this a plan of some kind? Because Just said to me, that's weird. An electrical issue on the plane would turn it around, and now they have another plane. I was thinking, is this a plot that the new plane that they have uh, is being booby trapped for the president? But I didn't realize, you might know this because I know Sherry worked on the Air Force One purchasing and things like that. I didn't know we had a backup Air Force One.
We do have a backup, obviously. But yeah, let me just tell that story because I love telling that story. Sherry worked for the Air Force and she was in procurement, so she would negotiate contracts. One of the contracts that she would negotiate is that the pilots of Air Force One every year had to get trained because they're always making some type of upgrade to the planes. She would negotiate contracts for flight simulators for where the pilots of Air Force One would go in there and get their X amount of training every year. And so she got to know some of the pilots for Air Force One. I guess it was George W. Bush was visiting St. Louis. We were living in St. Louis at the time. George Bush comes in and Sherry and her job partner, Connie, were invited to go on Air Force One. And so Sherry got to go on Air Force One. She saw George W. Bush's dirty underwear hanging on the back of chairs and stuff like that. So I love to tell that story because I think it's pretty cool being able to go on Air Force One, but you got to walk around a little bit and check it out. But yeah, so anyway, go back to your story. I just wanted to get that.
Oh no, I love it. And I probably should have assumed we had a backup plane because what are they going to do then? Throw them in a B-2 bomber or whatever? Yeah. Not that he wouldn't
Southwest
mind.
Air, Southwest Air.
We're going to charter a Southwest Airlines. No first class. The whole thing was kind of suspicious to me, but then I turned on the news and there he was talking to the forum, and it was like a father talking to his children that had taken over the mansion, had a big party, drank all the booze, ate all the food, and he was telling them they need to go back to work and there'll be no more food and booze in the house anymore because mom and dad are back in town. It was, in all seriousness, the guy is not afraid to tell it like it is. And that's what they hate about him, because these diplomats and these prime ministers and presidents and all these European leaders, they're all about double talk. They're all about statesmanship. They're all about BS. And they could care less about their own countries. All they care about is their power, their status, where they get to fly around to, what leaders they get to meet, what food they get to eat, what wine they get to drink. And Trump comes in and says, hey, I represent the trailer park and my people. And I'm not doing that to denigrate trailer parks. We have millions of them around the country, and they're some of the salt of the earth of this country. Trump is there to support every American, whether it's a trailer park or a McMansion. It doesn't matter. He's there for the American people, and he's going to tell it like it is. He's going to protect us where he can. He's going to make economic choices that he thinks are best for us. He doesn't care what they think of him, because they think that of us anyway. They don't. They think Americans are the scum of the earth, and we were the stepchild that ended up coming out on top. And they hate that. They absolutely hate it. And so Trump was just standing there telling them, this is how it's going to be. And they hate that because they want to hide it in language that makes them, like, without saying anything, they want to hide it, and they want to make the deals in the back room and not tell their people. So, these economic forums, are, a reason for very rich people to get together to do nothing except blab. But it was good to see the president saying, hey, we need Greenland. to protect the world and decide how we're going to do it. I'm not going to take it over militarily. I am going to get Greenland somehow. And if you look back on the history of our country, the Louisiana Purchase, the purchase of Mexico, and we've acquired, our land. That's how people do it. What's wrong with that? When did that become, a problem? We've done it all throughout history. Mm-hmm. Either you conquer it or you buy it. That's all. And he's not saying he's going to conquer it, but he's saying in order for NATO to be effective, this is what we need to do to strategize. And I think what'll come out at the end of the day is they all know he's right. They just hate that he's right. And they gotta find a way to get to where he is, where they can save face of some kind. And Trump knows that because he comes from a principle of strength and of truth. And that's the truth, that Greenland is important and he needs it, and it's important to our future, and he'll be damned if the Chinese or the Russians are going to get anything to do with that land.
Yeah, great points. I just, some of my observations. Number one, like last night when you're hearing about there being electrical issues on Air Force One, I don't know what time at night that was, but it was, relatively late. He has to fly over to Davos, which is probably a good 8-hour flight. Yep. And then when I wake up this morning, he's giving a speech. The man is nonstop. He's close to 80. Yeah. Also, I want to mention, like when I worked at UPS, David Abney, the UPS CEO at the time, he would go to Davos every year, and I worked on Q&A, so we'd have to research what questions we expected David Abney to be asked when he was at his meetings and things. We'd have to prepare him for it. But the World Economic Forum is, like you were saying, it's just a bunch of political, business, and academic elites. Yeah. And it's like a fairy tale land out there, Rich. When David would come back, that's when we'd hear about all this DEI stuff. We'd hear about the LGBT stuff and how we need to be doing more. And so everybody wanted to go, but it was a place where if you wanted to be a part of the crowd, you'd have to go along with some crazy, crazy stuff. And Donald Trump doesn't go along with that crazy stuff. And I'm sure it just drives the people at the World Economic Forum crazy because he changes their whole agenda.
Yes,
we want to talk about DEI. We want to talk about sharing the wealth of the United States with all the other countries in the world. Yep. And Donald Trump is coming in here and he wants to talk about taking over Greenland.
Pay your bills, you bastard.
Pay your bills. Yeah, but like you said, like when I think of Trump, what does he want? And why is he criticized? Trump wants U.S. citizens to benefit from the U.S. economy. So he's like, you're not getting all our money. We earned it. We're going to keep it. We will participate. But these world organizations, I'm sorry, everybody has to pay their fair share. The United States is not going to foot the bill. He doesn't want to give U.S. taxpayer money to all these global elites who want to just use it as their own money. Yeah, he wants NATO and the West to proactively prepare for China and Russia for their aggressiveness. So he's like, hey, wake up, guys. I know we haven't talked about this in a long time, but Greenland is in a very strategic position. And if the United States gets control of it, you, Western Europe, or the West in general, we're going to be a lot safer. And so I know he comes off as gruff, and I actually thought he came off his speech today, although I didn't hear all of it. It was much more measured. He was explaining why we need Greenland. He was explaining, like I think you mentioned, what the United States did during World War II when we protected Greenland. Yep. And so he explained why it's a good idea for everybody, for the United States to gain control over Greenland. So I do agree with you. He doesn't care what these people think about him. He's going to say exactly what he thinks is the right thing, and he's going to pressure these people to do the right thing no matter what they say about him.
Yeah, and he slammed the whole green energy, windmills, and and he even said, I haven't been a big fan of nuclear, but I'm learning, basically that it's safer and that, the technology has moved forward. But he's not about, solar and wind and all that crap. And
What did he
there,
say about the wind turbines? You mentioned that earlier to me. What did
he
he
said,
say about front end wind turbines?
well, he said every time they go around, you lose $1,000. So, um, he hates windmills, and I hate windmills. I think they are land pollution. They are inefficient. There's so much. If you drive, and Ken, you may have seen this because you have driven back and forth from St. Louis to New York, and we've gone out west ourselves. We just came back
Yep.
from Colorado, drove out to Colorado, and you see all these tractor trailers with windmill,
The
the
blades.
yeah, blades are on the trucks, and you look at the amount of effort, and these things, if it wasn't for oil, couldn't even run because they run on oil because there's moving mechanisms and everything else. And then they take up a lot of space. They kill wildlife. You have to dig up the ground. And it's like, I get oil can be dirty, but the technology and the drilling that they do now compared to what they used to do is so much cleaner, and it's so much more efficient, whether it's
Mhm.
gas, propane, or oil, is much more effective. And what he's basically, he went after that whole agenda. And one of the things people need to understand, when you open your electric bill in New York or Chicago or anywhere, you go there, that's a state issue. There are a lot of electric companies that are all electric companies are regulated in most states,
Yeah.
and they are given a ultimatum that you either invest in clean energy and put in all this extra infrastructure instead of coal plants or oil plants or propane plants or whatever plants. They are forced to make these investments. Who do you think pays for that?
Hmm.
So when you blame Trump for higher electric bills, you're blaming the wrong person. Energy prices are up the most in blue states and blue cities. And it's because Democrats continue to want these companies to use your money to invest in windmills and solar and all that other garbage. And I don't mean to say garbage, but it
Yeah. No.
raises our prices. It's not Donald Trump, because if you're heating your house through oil or gas, your bill should be going down. But because they're tied to the electrical infrastructure, they're going up because of policies that your Democratic governor or your Democratic mayor are forcing on those companies. So, you know, I believe in an all around solution,
Yeah.
but I'll be damned if I would take a fertile field that can be made to grow food and crops and put a bunch of solar panels on it. I think that's foolish. Um, but if there comes a time when a battery can hold a charge for, a lot longer than it can now, and it makes sense economically, and you can build it without destroying the earth, um, I would go for that. I'm not
No.
against new technology, but damn it, gas and oil and they are naturally occurring products that are efficient to run our economies. Why are we trying to destroy that? You got to ask, why are they trying to destroy the most effective energy creation material fuel in the world? And who is trying to destroy it? That's what you got to remember, and you got to ask yourself that question. But Trump
Yeah.
isn't raising your electric bill. Hochul is. That,
Yep.
Spitzer and, Windmere,
Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom.
Oh.
They're raising your electric bills, not Trump.
Rich, you talked about me driving up to New York, and I've driven across the country, and for about 10 months, I commuted back and forth from St. Louis to Des Moines, Iowa. And I went through beautiful farmland, and it was a nice drive. It was just a very pretty drive, especially during the summertime. But more recently, I drove from the Quad Cities all the way out Rocky Mountain National Park. I'm driving out there, Route 80, and the liberals were always the environmentalists, Rich. And I used to drive the beautiful rolling hills. Now there's all these wind turbines all over. It looks horrible.
It's
horrible. And many times they're not even spinning because the wind is not blowing hard enough. It just doesn't make any sense. And let me just tell you, when I worked at UPS, I worked in the investor relations group, and we used to have talking points on, look at what we're doing for the environment. We're purchasing all of these electric vehicles. We're saving the environment. Well, those electric vehicles would cost literally twice as much as the gas vehicles. So instead of paying $40,000 for a gas vehicle, you'd have to pay $80,000 or more for an EV. Mm-hmm. Well, we wouldn't purchase them unless the state or the federal government was giving us that additional $40,000 to purchase these EVs. And that's the problem, is that when it comes to making an economic decision, nobody's going to do these things like with the wind turbines, with the EVs. If you want to do it, that's great. But from an economic standpoint, it's just not economically feasible. And so that's when the Democrats have to come in and say, okay, we'll give you all this money for you to do it. But once the money dries up, it's like, no, this is crazy. We're not doing it. Like you think about, the car industry, and Trump is like, no, we're not going to subsidize you anymore. If you want to make those vehicles, great, but people are going to have to pay the additional money for them. They're not going to get the subsidies. And that's really the way that it should be, Rich.
Absolutely. Yeah. My favorite truck, the Ford F-150, the Lightning, the E model is gone, because when you think about what people, just look at pickup trucks across the country, what are they doing? They're normally towing something, carrying something. They're full of mud because they're working trucks, and they work in every climate, and they're rugged. They're there to do hard work. Electric trucks just didn't have the capacity, and Ford only did it because, and you see a handful of them out there, but it's usually the car enthusiast or the first out of the gate, the people who want to own something new, and very wealthy people that park it in their driveway and hardly use it for anything. But if you have to subsidize it, then you probably don't need it, or it's not ready for market.
Well, you think about the EV charging stations. Joe Biden, with the Green New Deal, set aside billions of dollars to build what are essentially, gas stations for electric cars, putting them all over the country. I think by the time he left office, there was maybe a handful of, the thousands that he was supposed to build. But when the gas-powered car came out, did the government have to subsidize all the creation of all these gas stations around the country? No, of course not. It was done by the private sector. And so that's just another indication that this industry will not last without subsidies. When you have to literally build these EV stations yourself, or the federal government has to build them, maybe it's not ready for prime time yet. And that is the case. It's obviously the case. So anyway, hopefully for the next couple of years at least, we've moved on from that insanity in the life of the United States.
Yeah, I hope so. What's up next, Ken?
Oh, last night Trump was in the press room.
Yes, I saw that. He took over Caroline's press briefing.
Yeah, and I listened to a lot of it. Honestly, it was kind of painful to listen to. I don't know, maybe if I watched it, it would have been a little bit more pleasant, but it was just kind of painful. This is one of the things where Trump, I don't think does the best job. I think it's important for him to detail all the things that he did, and he did a lot. But the things that we love to hate about Trump, where, oh, look at what I did, all the patting on the back, talking about he should have won the Nobel
People are
Peace
telling me
Prize.
I'm great. People tell me I'm great. I don't say it myself, but I think I'm great. But it's not
Yeah,
me. It's other people that tell. I agree. I couldn't even watch. And again, for the left who likes to listen to the show or watch our show now, we understand Trump's not perfect. I it, what I would love to see is JD Vance go out and tout all of the economic advances of last year, and then Rubio go out and advance all of the foreign policy wins. And I would rather see his cabinet talking about those things, but Trump can't help himself. And he goes on to his reel. He's always in sales mode. He's always in campaign mode, and he's always in defensive mode because of how much he gets attacked. So these are the kind of things you kind of go, yeah, Mr. President, these are things that we already send out your team for this kind of stuff.
yeah.
This gets petty, and because I didn't see the questioning because I couldn't watch. I know what he's done. I love what he's done on most things, but I can't watch it because I'm like, oh, you're giving them fodder. They're going to take it out of context. They don't understand when he's joking or when he's joshing, or you have to speak Trump in
Yes.
order to translate Trump. And I think he's a great president from a policy standpoint, but his messaging at times when this was kind of off the cuff. He doesn't do himself any favors by doing this. Send your Vance and Rubio out, because they're going to be the next generation. Let's get them in front and let them, because they are refreshing to watch. I love the way they speak. And, the president will probably never come on our show because some of the critique that we do about this kind of stuff, but it's real. People cringe at certain things. Some people are better speakers than others. He is great when he's on message and reading the teleprompter, and then he goes off, and then you're like, oh, where are we going? Which reel is this? Is this the fake election results of 2020? Is it
Which he touched on, which he did touch on.
Oh, did he?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, he mentioned that,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
he
the
goes on
weapon.
a little, side.
Yeah,
He likes to
yeah,
go down rabbit holes, and that's one of the rabbit holes he goes on, which
yeah.
I don't disagree with him, but he just
Yeah, it's the way
things
he
he always
does.
brings up.
Yeah, no, and it does have relevance when it comes to future elections, because if you don't take care of that stuff, we're gonna have it even worse in the future. So I get it, but do I have to like it? Nope. So I don't watch it, because I know whatever's going to come out of it, we're going to have to translate it anyway. So I want to see what the left jumps onto, and then kind of focus on that, because there's a whole lot of fodder for the left when he does this.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot to talk about, but when he talks about it, you tell me, Rich, when he exaggerates, like we know he exaggerates.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
If he says
he embellishes everything.
Yeah, this is the biggest,
Biggest,
the biggest
best,
crowd
greatest.
ever.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's not the biggest crowd ever. It's a big crowd, but it's not the biggest crowd ever. Is it the lowest inflation rate ever? No, it's come down. You're right.
Yeah.
It has come down. So everything he says has a lot of truth to it. Everything he says is better than what the Biden administration did or the Obama administration did. Is it the best? No. And so when I'm hearing him say the best that nobody can believe, I'm just thinking to myself, okay, the fact checkers at CNN, the fact checkers at MSNBC, They're going to be working overtime. But to your point, we factor that in. Like we
Yeah, of
know
course.
when he says that it's not 100% true, but it's much better than the alternative.
I love comedians that can do Trump because Trump is so easy to do. And, but it's like, even when Trump starts talking, Just and I will be watching and I'll say, "Hun, do you know that he's the greatest? It's been the greatest economy ever." And that people are telling him that it's not just him. And we just kind of go back and forth. And it's laughable, but the foundation of it's basically true. He is
Well,
doing everything we need to get done to have a good economy, lower inflation, prosperous future. He's doing all the right things. So you kind of gotta take the verbose, and you have to go with the flow.
here's one of the things that I see on social media a lot. They're criticizing Trump for, and I think this kind of encapsulates what we're talking about here. They criticize Trump for accepting the Nobel Peace Prize from that Venezuelan, what's his name?
I think it was it from the woman that
Yeah, from the woman.
Machado,
Oh yeah,
something.
yeah, something
Machado.
like that, Machado. But Trump, now did Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize more than Machado? Probably.
Absolutely.
Did Barack Obama deserve the Nobel Peace Prize when he won it back in whenever that was,
Absolutely
2008 or
not.
so? Of course not. So there's a lot of truth in what he says, but you understand why the left just it drives the left crazy, and why we are just like, oh please, yeah, yes, you did deserve it. No, Barack Obama didn't deserve it. Yes, it was a nice gesture of this woman to give it to you because she didn't deserve it compared to you, but you don't need to talk about it,
No.
or you can mention it once in a speech, but don't bring it up every single time.
And
Yeah. So what else? Anything else we have to say about Trump in 2025?
well, he's moved the country in the right direction is the big picture. And he closed our border immediately. He made the tax cuts permanent. He secured the Panama Canal. He's now gotten rid of Venezuela. He bombed the Iranians into oblivion, and they're hopefully going to have a revolution there. He's going to end up with Gaza peace, and a whole bunch of other countries that were going at each other. We'll see where Greenland goes, but the economy compared to Joe Biden is going in the right direction. He's bringing back American work. One thing we have to remember what's happening out there. The people keep saying, "Oh, the manufacturing jobs aren't coming back." They are coming back. The issue is we now are invested in this new technology called AI,
Yeah.
which is limiting how many people we're bringing back. So there are going to be, it's not going to be traditionally bringing back a car plant and 10,000 people go to work. That's no longer the way it works. 100 people might go to work and 10,000 people might be involved in the plant getting built, technology that goes into the plant, robotics, all kinds of different types of workers get engaged in that. So you can't just look at it from a manufacturing job perspective. And, they keep saying we've got this unemployment, but millions of jobs remain open.
Yes.
And that's what's confusing is why are those jobs open and we have unemployment? And there's obviously a skills gap that we have to figure out what that is. And we need to plug that hole, which goes to our immigration policy, which should be no more. We should be bringing in engineers and scientists that we need. And we need to train up the American workforce to be ready for these jobs that we seem to not be able to fill. So there's a lot of dynamics going on with, I think we're going to see GDP numbers of 5%, Ken, if I'm hearing
that's what
that
I'm
right.
hearing.
Yeah.
Astronomical. Those are
That's
astronomical.
massive.
Yes.
absolutely massive, but you can no longer use the old formulas that 5% GDP growth equals a certain amount of jobs, because we have, one of the reasons the stock market is doing so well is because of the productivity numbers, which has to do with AI. And it's like going from horse and buggy to a truck, right? So, now you can move a lot more goods with a truck than you could a horse and buggy. So you need less, you don't need any horse and buggies, and you need one truck for every 100 horse and buggies. That advancement of technology makes the need less for the human work, which is a good thing for
Mhm.
productivity, but we have to figure out where the other jobs are and make sure that people are trained for those effectively.
Yeah, no, I agree. Trump bringing back these, working to bring back these jobs. It's not an easy thing, but
Yeah,
Trump comes in and he sees, and we saw it during COVID, how reliant we were on China. And he's
absolutely.
like, why are we so reliant on China? Well, partly because China has a great deal. Like when they import things to us, it's very inexpensive. When we export things to them, it's very expensive. And when we export things to other countries, the same thing. And so the tariff policies were really meant to correct that imbalance that was created by,
Absolutely.
these different trade deals. But, he looked at the fact that the U.S., our manufacturing and industrial jobs were going down. Technology, the chips, our pharmaceuticals. Like it seemed like everywhere you turned, everything's being made over in China. And that
Absolutely.
puts us in a very, very precarious situation, especially considering the fact that they're our global adversary. If they can just turn off certain drugs from being shipped to the US, or they could
Or
stop
tainting
sending us,
or tainting those drugs, Ken.
or tainting those
Yeah,
drugs. Yeah.
yeah,
Who knows? Maybe part of the insanity we see on the woke left is a result of some of the drugs coming from China.
could
But
be.
like the chips that are used to on our military weapons, Trump
Yep.
saw all that and like
Shipbuilding. We haven't.
shipbuilding.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so we had all these global elites who are like, hey, we're making tons of money by having China make everything. But that's a problem because when push comes to shove, if you're not making it in the United States, you're vulnerable to China cutting those things off. So I think, and I don't think Trump gets enough credit for that. The mainstream media likes to talk, oh, well, the price of this is going up and the price of that is going up without looking at what it does for us, like
Yeah.
making us independent, bringing back manufacturing. So the media is always going to spin it in a way that hurts Trump. But what he did with this whole manufacturing vis-a-vis China has been remarkable, great, and hopefully in the long term, he will get credit for it because it was and is a great thing that he's doing.
Yeah. And Ken, I have proof that SCOTUS, Supreme Court, listened to us last week, because if you had heard this week, the Supreme Court decided not to release anything on tariffs because of hands-on politics,
Yeah.
mentioning that this was a political issue, not a constitutional issue. So I think our show had a major impact last week on the Supreme Court. They heard our argument saying, where in the Constitution does it say that the president can't use tariffs for national defense, foreign policy, all of the things that he is deemed with doing in the Constitution? It says nothing about tariffs being a utilization tool for the president. So I think they heard us last week. They're reconsidering.
Rich, I got to tell you, hands on politics, we're movers and shakers. Next year, we should probably do our show from Davos, Switzerland, because we are part of the global elites. If we have enough time, we're going to show some of the hands on politics merchandise. And I'll tell you what, if we were selling this merchandise over in Davos, we could make a small killing. Let me
Oh,
see if I can just
we could
show
add it.
this.
Oh, look at this, Ken. Oh, so we've got your traditional T-shirt, and what is that in the top left, Ken? A
Yeah.
hands-on politics bro.
Well, some people might consider it a sports bra, which it is. A woman could definitely wear that. But if you're a little bit larger, a little jiggly as a man, it's called the HOP bro. Some people will call it the HOP manzier. But again, it's unisex, so either a man or a woman can use it.
Yep.
I also do like in the bottom left hand corner is the HOP bikini panties.
Yes.
I really expect these to go really well around Valentine's Day. Should be one of our biggest
That will
sellers.
be a Valentine's Day absolutely favorite. And the coffee cup. I'm going to have to get my coffee cup so that I can show it here on. I'm going to need to have it on both sides because I hold my cup with my right hand. That one would be a lefty, so that might be you. Oh, there you go. You've got your hands on politics, and then Yeti has approached us with the lunchbox, the new line of Yeti coolers, the hands-on politics lunchbox. That's going to go flying off the Yeti shelves. You're welcome, Yeti, for the mention here on this broadcast without having to pay for it. But I love the merchandise, Ken. And if you'd like to order, just send us a note at hop 2025 at AOL.com, and we'll get you one of those braziers there for your Valentine and
A
those,
bro, a bro.
bro, and the bikini panties just in time for Valentine. We may even throw in a dozen roses, but we'll see.
Yeah. We'll have to talk to our marketing director, Chris,
Yes,
our
Chris.
sister Chris,
Yep,
see what she wants to do as far as
absolutely.
those
Her,
add-ons.
her phone is probably ringing off the hook right now, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, you better believe it.
All right, Ken. I think we've exhausted our this episode. We've gone a little over an hour, and as always, it's a lot of fun. And I want to thank everybody for being here at Hands On Politics. We love that you're watching the show. Go to our Hands On Politics 2.0 Facebook site. We've been getting a lot of followers there, Ken.
Oh yeah.
They've been, I think one of our last posts had, thousands of people that liked it. It was on Jasmine Crockett, her craziness, but that site's been getting a lot of legs. And our, what's our YouTube site, Ken?
It is Hands On Politics with Rich and Ken, and the "and" is an ampersand.
Okay.
If I said that properly.
Well, if you click on the show and you're watching right now, you're on the YouTube site. If you're signed into your site, subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you. This way you know when things go up there. Our past shows are up there. And then we have the HOP Hands On Politics mini series, which Ken has been doing a fabulous job where we do very short snippets of topics that help you to understand the issues more clearly from whether it's a constitutional perspective or a law perspective, but it's certainly the truth perspective. And so check out those HOP minis. They're really, Ken, you're doing a great job on those.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, and those are really intended to educate our listeners, right? They're generally, we're kind of referring to them as the HOP 3-minute minis because they are generally 3 minutes or less. So it doesn't take much time, but you get a lot of information in that short period of time.
I think we're going to find those being used in our public school system to educate the kids on the civics. It will not surprise me that if those spread like wildfire throughout the New York and Chicago public school system and then explode out into America, because something our youth needs today is better civics classes and those things.
Yeah, I agree. They need civics lessons and they need a hands-on politics lunchbox.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Share your lunch with
And
your
a mouse
friend.
pad. Yeah, exactly.
And a mouse pad. Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to and watching Hands on Politics. We're a couple of brothers. You're with them from the Bronx. Get together on a weekly basis to discuss the issues of the day. And we thank you for stopping by. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. And we'll see you next week on Hands on Politics.
Take care, Rich.